Good morning. We're going to get started in a few minutes here. Good morning. I'm going to my YouTube channel through my phone just to make sure everything's working. That was a delay test. I'm seeing how, if I move my head, in reality, how long does it take to show up on my YouTube channel? All right, I'm going to start in 1 minute here. Actually, I'm going to start right now because I think there's like about a 20-second delay. So welcome back. Good morning. This is computer science. If you know someone if you're in contact with someone who is not on the live stream and they're a little bit confused as to how to find the live stream, please, send them a text message or something like that so we can get as many people watching as possible. Good morning, Jonathan. All right, so I'm just going to go over some stuff here. So first of all, I wanted to remind you to do the attendance button. So the daily attendance, type in your student ID so that I can log your attendance for today. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the Zoom room. So after my lesson today, it might take a half an hour or something like that. After my lesson today, we will meet at the Zoom room. Okay? And then what are we going to do in the Zoom room? Well, I have already assigned your first programming assignment. Good morning, Christian, Jacob, and Mason. So I've already created your first assignment. And so what you're going to do is you're going to click modules on the side, and your first assignment should be there. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on. We're all going to work on that together. I also wanted to say, if you are unable to get the programming to work or anything like that, we will be, I'll be helping you out in the office hours. Okay. All right. So, I guess I have a couple more things. So this is my first year teaching computer science. Mr. Cooper used to teach it, and so I'm not really sure what level you guys are at. So I'm gonna just start where I think you guys are. Actually, I'm gonna start today where I think computer science SL is, and just with a little bit of review of Java. Okay, and if this review is too basic for you, if you already know it all, what I want you to do is you can just leave the live stream and immediately go to the Zoom room and wait for me. And you can also start working on the daily assignment. Okay? So I repeat, if today's lesson is too simple, go ahead and go over to the Zoom room and wait for me, and then also start working on your daily assignment. Because I'm not sure where you guys are in terms of your computer science knowledge. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Type them into the live stream if you have the live chat if you have a question. Well, at any point during the lesson, go ahead and type that in. All right, so here's what I'm going to do first. I'm actually going to go to my, oh, we have a question. How do I recommend you take notes? Honestly, if I were you to take notes, I would just, we're not going to do a lot of notes in this class, but you might have just a code board. You can create your own project in code board, so create a code board project, and you could literally just type in some of the code that I'm typing in, or you can make a comment in the code for your notes, something like that. All right. So what I wanted to talk about first is just how does a Java program work? Just a so how does a Java program work? All right, and so basically a Java program works. It has sort of two spaces. It's got something called the stack, and it's got something called the heap. So there's a stack and there's a heap. Now, what is the stack? The stack is basically a to-do list for your program. So the stack is typically going to kind of look like this. It's got a list of instructions, okay? And then the heap is sort of the details of those instructions, okay? So this is kind of so the heap is usually drawn as like a blob, okay? So it's just memory within your computer. The stack is also memory within your computer, but it's containing the to-do list for the program, and the heap is containing all the details. So for example, if you have a function or a method, let's say you're going to run a method. In the stack, you have method, and in the stack, you're not actually going to have the computer code for the method. You're going to have the location of the code for the method within the heap. Okay? So it basically in the stack is where the code for that particular method is. All right. And then once the method is done running, we go back to the stack. Okay. If you create an object in your computer program, let's say you create a string, that string is not actually in the stack. What you have in the stack is the location of the string within the heap. Okay? So it's like storing the memory addresses of where things are is in the stack, and the actual data is in the heap. Okay? With the exception of a few things. So there's something called a primitive type. Okay? A primitive type, for what is a primitive type? A primitive type, the value is stored in the stack. So as opposed to a string, for example, where you don't store the actual data for the string in the stack, you store the location of the data in the heap. For primitive types, you actually would store the data itself. So let me give you some examples of primitive types. You have ints, you have chars, characters, you have bytes, you have doubles, you have booleans, and there are three. So these are kind of the primitive types that we're going to use in the course, but there are a couple other ones. There's sort of some other kinds of doubles. It's basically the same thing as a double, but it's called a float. There is a long integer, but we don't need to worry about these ones. We're just going to focus on these primitive types, okay? Yeah, so if you have some code, all right, if you say I have an int x equal to 5, then 5 is actually being stored in the stack, okay? But if you have a string s equal to hello, basically what you're going to have is the memory address of hello, and then hello is going to be somewhere in the heap, okay? So those are primitive types. Everything else is an object. Okay, so an object, the memory address is stored in the stack. The data is in the heap. Okay? So the important thing, the comparison operator, you guys know the comparison operator equal equal. This compares only primitive types. Okay, so you would not, only if you really understand what you're doing, would you use this for objects. If you're using this with objects like strings or your own objects that you create, it's not gonna work like you expect it to. But for objects, if you want to compare them, you would use equals. Okay. All right. So that was I just wanted to talk about so if you get nothing else from this, just know that there are these things called primitive types, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to Intellij, and I'm going to show you how to use Intellij. So I've got a Intellij window. I have like multiple desktops open, so I got to switch to my other desktop. So here's Intellij, and if you downloaded Intellij yesterday, what you want to do is you can just go up to File and you can create a new project, okay? And so my project is called Main. All right, you can see it up at the top. And so along the side here, it has all the files for this particular project. So I will go ahead and open up the main code, and then I'll hit src. So that's the source code for your project. And I'm going to right-click it. And I'm going to put in a new Java class. That Java class is going to be the name of my project, which is main. So I've created a Java class called main, public class main. So the nice thing about Intellij is that it puts a lot of the code in for you automatically. So I didn't type public class main. It's just Intellij just put it in for me automatically. So that's pretty cool. I like that about Intellij. So let me check and see if there are any questions. Someone said, Mason asks, is there an important difference between Intellij and Genie? So Intellij is specifically a Java IDE. Okay, so it's really good at understanding Java, and it's going to fill in a lot of code for you automatically. If you're using Genie, Genie can do all kinds of programming languages. It can do C++, Python, all that stuff. So it's not as smart in Java. It's not going to put in as much code for you. Okay? So that's why I'm using Intellij. All right. So my class is called main, but as you know in Java, you have to have that, what bugs? You have to have that very fancy line of code. You have to have public, static, void, main, string args. Okay, so that's like the line of code. So this is where our program is. It's in the main function. Notice that the main class is different from the main function because one has an uppercase and one has a lowercase. Okay. So we're going to review some basic programming concepts. The first one I wanted to talk about is just outputting to the terminal. So so if you want to output to the terminal, you're going to put system.out.println, and you can put in hello world. Okay, and we end our statement with a semicolon. So let me show you how to compile something in Intellij. There's like a hammer right up here. I'll click the hammer and it's going to compile the code. It's compiling. My computer has so much stuff running that it's going to take a while to compile. Okay, so let's see. Has it compiled? I'm expecting I'm going to get compilation successful. Oh, I misspelled print. Rookie. While I let that compile, I'm going to see if there are any questions. Let's see. Okay, so it says build completed successfully in 30 seconds. That's a really long time for this code, but the reason for that is that I've got my computer's like maxed out right now. Cool. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and run my code. So I'm going to go to the run menu at the top of the screen, and I'll hit run. And I will run my project. And I want to go to the terminal on the bottom. This is going to print hello world to the, see, it just printed hello world to the terminal. Okay? So that's how that works. Let me see if there are any questions. Yeah, Riker says Intellij has a lot more bells and whistles, but it's not as fast. Yep. I agree with you. Okay. So I repeat, if you didn't join me at the beginning, so I'm going to go over some loops, basically. I'm going to be going over for loops and while loops. Okay? So if you're in Computer Science HL and you already know all about for loops and while loops, then you can go ahead and start doing the daily assignment and wait for me in the Zoom room. Okay? If you want a refresher, well, you're welcome to stay. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just a for loop. So how do we create a for loop? Say for, and then there's 3 parts to a for loop. You have to have an index, some kind of index, and you initialize it, semicolon. So here my index is an integer, and it's called I, and I started it being equal to 0. And then we have to have a condition that is going to end the for loop. So I will say the for loop will end when I is less than 5. And then the last thing is, what are you going to do every time the loop runs? What are you going to do to I? And so we're going to increment I by 1. Okay, and then I have a block of code. So this is my for loop. And so let's go ahead and just print what I is. System.out.println I. Okay, so what that's going to print out is, let's think about it. I starts out at 0. It's going to print I, then I will become 1, then it's going to print I, then I will become 2, then it prints I, then I will become 3, then it prints I, then I will become 4, then it prints I, and but then once I becomes 5, this condition will not be valid anymore. Okay? So I think I finished building that. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. So it should print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. It printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. We could do some other things. We could maybe start I at 5 and say I is greater than -1, and we could decrement I each time. What do you think this is going to print out? It's going to start out printing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So this is like a countdown. Let me check for questions while that's compiling. Cool. Honestly, this is just making me want to buy a more powerful computer. So let's run it. Gonna run it. Oh, whoops. Gosh darn it. So why did that not print anything? Because I said I meant to say I is greater than -1, but I said I is less than -1. So this loop is only going to work if I is less than -1. And so because I started out at 5, it just doesn't do the loop. Okay. So I goofed. I goofed on that. You can have nested loops. So let's go ahead and go back to where it was before. So this, as it is, it prints out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. But what if I do another loop inside this? So if I do another loop inside that, I have int j equals 0. And let's say that j has to be less than I. Okay. So that has another index. And then let's do system.println system.out. Let's print out j. So that's a nested loop. Compile that and check for questions. Ooh, Riker codes with a plain text editor. Okay, let's build it. Okay. So what we have here is, see how we have 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. Let's see if I can make this bigger. 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. So why is it doing that? Well, the inner loop is counting up to I. All right. So basically, the first run, I starts at 0. So j is going to output up to 0. For the second run of the loop, the I is equal to 1. So j is going to count from 0 to 1. And then j counts from 0 to 2. And then j counts from 0 to 3. And it goes on like that. Okay. So that's how that works. One thing I wanted to talk about is a break statement. So I think break statements are kind of handy. So let's go ahead and say if I is equal to 3, break. All right. So what is this going to do? We'll talk about what it's going to do while it builds. So the break statement exits the loop when the condition is met. Okay, so I'm saying if I is equal to 3, we're going to skip everything that comes after. Okay, so we're going to print out 0, 1, 2, but then when I equals 3, we're not actually going to print I because we're going to break the loop. So it should print out 0, 1, 2. Let's see if it does what I think it's going to do. Break statements are handy. Yep, it printed out 0, 1, 2. All right. My intention was to do while loops, but I want to keep my lesson to about half an hour, so I think I'm going to stop there, and we'll do while loops the next time I see you, which will be Thursday. So what I want to do now is go ahead and transfer over to the Zoom room. All right, so I will see you guys in the Zoom room, and that will conclude the lesson portion, because I really want some feedback from you guys if that's too easy or it's too difficult. Because like I said, this is my first year teaching computer science. All right, I'll see you on Zoom.